गिरीश जी, गुड आफ्टरनून और एक बार फिर स्वागत है आपका चैनल पे। और आज बात करेंगे, बड़ा करंट टॉपिक है, डी डॉलराइजेशन। अगर आप ट्विटर पे देखो, सोशल मीडिया पे देखो, तो सब इसी की बात कर रहे हैं। और लोगों ने कहा है कि अमेरिका का जो सुपर पावर का स्टेटस है वो बेसिकली डॉलर की पावर है। अमेरिका की पावर तो बाद में है, ये डॉलर की पावर है जिसकी वजह से अमेरिका एक सुपर पावर है। और एक्चुअली मैं देख रहा हूँ कि एक सीरिया का जो प्रेसिडेंट है, तो उसने तो कहा है कि मतलब लिटरली उसने ये वर्ड यूज कर दिया कि डॉलर एक टेररिस्ट है। दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ वर्ड्स ही हैज यूज्ड स्ट्रांगली फॉर डॉलर। तो मैं आपसे जानना चाहूंगा, आफ्टर ऑल ये डी डॉलराइजेशन क्या है? डॉलर का कोई रिप्लेसमेंट है कि नहीं है? इम्प्लीकेशंस क्या है?
Thank you, Colonel sir. If you recollect, very recently, Mr. Kotak Mahindra also said the similar kind of a thing. Just in last week only, within this period, he
ओके,
said ki one of the strongest or terrorist kind is dollar. It's not because of any other reason. What it is happening is that nobody knows at what time US government can take a punitive action and stop that country or that currency or that particular establishment to disallow all their transaction in dollar and other thing, which we have seen very recently in the Russia-Ukraine war. After, you remember, February 22, when the Russia-Ukraine war erupted, within no time, US and Europe took a decision that Russia will be out of the SWIFT. That is the process where all foreign exchange in dollar is being allowed by the US controlled banks, SWIFT, which is there. And once it is out, then all your foreign reserve or foreign reserve which you are having in currency in dollar or in bonds and other things, you are not able to touch or use those currency. So this is one of the reason. And if you recollect, during last year when we were discussing that Russia-Ukraine war and its impact, and then what is the thing. So apart from the direct physical war which is happening, the worst part was that US itself has allowed other countries to look out for an alternate to the dollar. It is nobody else but US should be blamed for this action, because it should be the last resort to stop any country to disallow their exchange or their transaction or their trade in dollar. So it is, since it is started by US, I will blame US for allowing other countries to look out for an alternate. Now, before we go more into this, let me just bring in some facts or rephrase them, which we have discussed in our previous
ओके,
videos also. That after till World War I, pound was the world currency.
ओके,
And after World War I, when the Europe was losing power and America was coming up as a world power, and before Second World War in 1944, US dollar became the world currency after agreement reached between 46 countries and US. At that time, all countries had agreed, including India, that forex foreign currency as a US dollar as a reserve. And at that time, it was agreed by the US that against every dollar, they will be keeping a gold as a reserve, so that
ओके,
people will have a faith in the currency and stability. These are the two most important things which any country or most of the countries, when they work for a currency, it should be stable and it should be a trust on that. So US was at that time was trusted, and at the same time faith was there, and then it has changed over from pound to dollar as a forex currency. However, during Vietnam War, when US was having a long drawn battle with Vietnam, and they are finding it difficult to continue with their reserve of gold against every dollar. So President Nixon has decided that no more linkage of dollar with the gold. Though still US is the biggest holder of gold in their chest. After this Vietnam War and other things, dollar still remain the most trusted and most is stable currency, and all other currencies were following or keeping them as a reserve. So this was the power, and the impact was that worldwide the maximum trade, not only the US but the otherwise also, is happening in dollar. For example, crude oil, which is the biggest tradable item happening worldwide because many countries are buying or exporting. All this thing happening in the terms of dollar. So if we look it from the rough number, and let's not go into the exact amount, say roughly OPEC is exporting around 30 million barrel per day. And if we add another 10 million from US and 10 million from Russia, I'm not talking of many other countries which are also producing another thing. So 50 million barrel kind of a oil is in the market. And the similar thing is the converting into product, another byproduct, another thing. But as a crude oil, 50 million barrel, considering $80 a barrel, so something around 400 million barrel per day is the exchange of trade is happening in dollar alone. Similarly, if we add gas into this, so something around $500 million kind of a exchange or trade is happening in terms of dollar only from the oil and gas. So next is the defense and pharma and other things. So all those currencies are again trading in the dollar. So dollar is the biggest tradable exchange worldwide which is happening. Now, after this war, let's go slightly prior to something around late 90s. Libya was the first country who tried to come out of the dollar trade with the crude oil, because Libya is one of the major exporter. And similarly is the Iraq. They also tried to, when they were having a war with Iran and other thing and Iraq. So what was happening? They also tried to come out of the changes of crude oil from dollar to their currency or other currency, which was not liked by the superpower of that time, US, and even today also. And then we have seen for one region or other, both the rulers are out of the game and out of the power.
Yes.
The simple thing. So let's say dollar is the biggest strength of the US economy. And that's the reason, in spite of having the maximum debt as a country or as an individual things, we are still having the current country as well as currencies having the highest rating, means they are still AAA and AA kind of a thing, whereas a country like India, which is not even having the CAD of less than 2.5 or 3%, still we are in the B rating, whereas the other countries which are higher than us still in the AA rating. Just
Yes.
because they are having the authority to print their currency in dollar and work with it. Now, having said that, so is it so easy to replace dollar and so quickly? Answer is no. Why it is so? Let's understand any currency, whichever, whether it is of country's currency or a worldwide currency which is exchanged. Trust and faith and the stability is the one of the biggest criteria of any country currencies. Now, if we look at what is the other alternate? Say, as we know, which are the top 5 or 6 economy in the world? The first is US, something around 23-24 trillion dollar, followed by China, which is around 17. Then Japan, Germany, UK, which is around 4.9, 4.2 trillion dollar, and then UK and India, which is around 3.19 and 3.17 trillion dollar economy.
Yes.
And then other countries are following, which is, so economy wise, no one is nearer to the US as of now. As I said, in addition to US own economy, the world trade is mainly in crude oil and pharma and other things are still happening in dollar. So worldwide, the currency dollar dominance is there. Now, China is the second largest economy, which is around 70, and they are surplus. It means they are mostly export driven country and they are not having any kind of issue of CAD kind of issue like what India is having, in spite of such a big country. Their reserve size, means like foreign currency reserve, which China is holding, is something around $3.15 trillion
Okay.
as of December 22.
Okay.
So in a way, we can say it is something around 4.5 times of India's reserve is the reserve size of the China, which is
China.
holding $3.15
Okay.
trillion. Ability wise, we can say that China is better. But what it is lacking is the trust. Why I'm telling the trust, it is not only the currency, but the country plays a very important role in trust from other business partner and other major economy worldwide. Now, unfortunately, China is not having a good relationship with any of its neighbor, be it South Korea, be it India, be it Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, and
Yeah, they have
if we
got
are
disputes with everybody.
Taiwan and others. So they are having a dispute of boundary with almost all countries wherever China is having a border.
Yes.
So that is a major reason. Second thing, currency manipulation is also one of the main allegation by US and Europe. Very often we hear that China is manipulating their own currencies for the benefit to improve export. They downplay and keep their currency slightly lower than what its real value is, and which help in exporting. So if that is the reason, then if suppose I am holding, let's say for a hypothetical case, Chinese yuan as a my reserve, and China is intentionally keeping its price low. So what will happen? Anybody who's holding that currency as a reserve, they will be a loser. So
Yes.
faith and trust, these are the two things which is lacking for China. Now comes to the which are the other alternates. The other alternate is European Union, which we can say because
Euro.
euro is the major currency after dollar. But it is not one country there. It is a euro is a uh, accepted in 10, 12 countries, but driven by various factors. So
Yes.
Germany is having its own agenda, France is having its own agenda, Italy is having its own agenda, and always. So what will happen? It is not as a single country which will take a call. For some reason or other, euro is stable, but country-wise, each country will have their own priorities, so which we cannot say that it will be accepted uniformly by all means, whether what is the interest of France, which we have seen in Russian-Ukraine war. There is some difference of opinions are arising
Yes.
among
Yes.
EU nation also, even though they all are part of NATO.
Yes.
So now comes to the which are the other currency. India is the fifth largest or sixth largest, whatever way, because it's hardly difference of $0.02 trillion between India and
Yes.
China or UK. But India is still not in a position from two aspects. One is as a superpower, we do not have even veto power and other things. So the advantage which European, let's say UK is having, France is having, and China and they are
Russia.
having, India is not having that advantage. Second thing, our economy is not that big compared to these countries, China and US. So
Yes.
it is a bit difficult. But fortunately, these events like US, they themselves, as I said, taken a decision disallowing one country or other country, sometime to Iran, sometime to the. So other smaller countries and medium other countries are looking out for an alternate. So India is having the advantage of digitization and other things vis-a-vis other foreign currency. If you look at where we are the largest or the world leader in the uh, digitization, UPI transaction and other thing, we are much larger than what entire Europe or other countries are using it. So
Yes.
this is one advantage. So India, wherever India is having a good import export with the country, we are started talking and then having an exchange, if possible, other than in dollar also. So UAE is one of the largest partner, and so around 18 countries has already signed, and another 18 countries are in process of signing, and rupees and currency of their country. So it is a small step, but in a right direction. But as I said, India need to be established as a UN veto power country and improve its GDP, so that it can be considered as a major, one of the currency. At presently, after this incidents of Iran and other things, many countries has started diverting their foreign currency. Means apart from dollar, they started keeping it in um, euro, and some keeping in yen also, Japanese, because they are also the one of the largest, third largest economy, and
Yes.
gold. So similarly, India is also doing. India is also having the largest gold reserve. US dollar, plus also euro and other things. That is one of the reason when we are seeing time to time, India's foreign exchange reserves varies. Sometimes it goes up and sometimes it goes down. It's not the reduction, but valuation of that reserve, because part of the our reserves are in euro and in other currency. So if those currencies upgrade or downgrade or is strengthened, then
Okay.
also our foreign exchange is also varying. So this
So
is de-dollarization is
yeah. गिरीश जी,
initiated by US, not by other
हाँ ऑफ कोर्स
countries.
हमने तो शुरू नहीं किया, बेसिकली यूएस ने ही शुरू किया, और ये यूक्रेन और रशिया वार से इनिशिएट हुआ। एक्चुअली इनिशिएटर वहां से आया, रशिया को, बिकॉज उनको इंटरनेशनल करेंसी सिस्टम से शायद बाहर करना था। बट नेवरदलेस अभी जितने भी कंट्रीज हैं, मैं देखता हूँ ईरान है, रशिया है, चाइना है, ये सब इस बात में इंटरेस्टेड हैं कि किसी न किसी तरीके से डॉलर को रिप्लेस किया जाए, एंड प्रॉब्ली दे आर लुकिंग फॉर न्यू ग्लोबल वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर, दैट इज वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक ऑर्डर। अब उसमें जो लेटेस्ट आज मैं ट्विटर पे देख रहा था कि इंडिया और रशिया ने रुपी रूबल के बेसिस पे वो ट्रेड करना चाह रहे थे, तो वो टॉक्स अभी सस्पेंड हुई हैं। प्रॉब्ली किसी ने ये भी लिखा कि इंडिया शायद इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली आपने कहा ना, करेंसी इज वन फैक्टर, कंट्री इज अनदर फैक्टर, के कंट्री के ऊपर ट्रस्ट लेवल कितना है। तो दैट इज वन एस्पेक्ट ऑफ इट। अब दूसरी बात, आपने एक पॉइंट दिया था कि किसकी कितनी बड़ी इकोनॉमी है, तो एक दूसरा जो फ्लोट अराउंड कर रहा है थॉट प्रोसेस, वो ये है कि जैसे ब्रिक्स है, ब्रिक्स में रशिया है, चाइना है, इंडिया है, ब्राजील है, आई बिलीव सऊदी अरबिया भी बड़ा कीन है, और ऑफ कोर्स साउथ अफ्रीका तो उसमें आ ही गया। तो कैन दे फ्लोट ए करेंसी ऑफ देयर ओन, मतलब आफ्टर ऑल अगर ये पांचों नेशंस अगर मिल जाते हैं, तो ये तो बड़ा ट्रेड ब्लॉक या इकोनॉमिक ब्लॉक बन सकता है। कैन दे डू दैट?
Yes, actually, you are right. BRIC nation has already having their bank, which is in China, headquarter like World Bank and IMF is having in US. The same way, BRIC nations is having their own bank in China. But again, as I said, the dispute between the two major powers, let's say China, India, Russia, they are the main partner if you look at, apart from Brazil and South Africa. So
Yes.
what will happen? The India is, whatever we say, in spite of what our good intention and all those things, we have trust deficit with China. So even when trade wise, yes, India is having one of the largest trade with China, but still we would not like to keep yuan as a reserve
Oh.
for us as well as other places, because as I said in the beginning, uh, one thing is that openness, or let's say that the information from China is highly limited. Second thing, how much quality and what kind of that information is having, it's another aspect which each one is not knowing, whether the information which they're having about the China's economy or the currency and other thing, how far it is true and how far it is not true. And then manipulation allegation which is there from US and many other things. So as I said, if China, I am keeping, let's say, yuan as a reserve. Now if yuan is devaluated intentionally by the China, then what will happen? Automatically I will be a loser. So
Oh.
until that faith is there, that yes, currency is stable. Now until unless that comes as a certain percentage of the currency against gold, now it is very, very difficult. Why I said very difficult? Because the world has changed from 1940 to 2030. I'm telling, let's say, after 80 years. The reason is the world economy, the size is too high for anybody or any individual currency to link it with the gold, because that much quantity of gold is not there. Let's say, even if suppose US want to retain certain percentage of their economy against, let's say, currency against gold, then we are talking of say $25 trillion. Let's say even 20% of that is considered. So $4 trillion gold is lying idle all the time in the treasury. Means 20% has to be linked, or say 10% or whatever it is. So economy size has gone so much, then it is, I will say, it will be an waste, or say idle, uh, which has no other thing except lying in the vault, and gold is kept there. And without gold, there is no alternate as of now, because we have seen silver uses has changed, any other metal is changed. So we cannot have an alternate to gold as of now, because when all these things happening, suddenly gold prices has gone up and other thing. So it is good theoretically and ideally that all currency should be linked to the gold, but it is practically not possible for dollar or for euro or for Indian currency to link themselves with the gold and keep that much quantity of gold in the vault, which will unnecessarily increase the gold price, and then it will be a cascading effect.
पॉइंट था, जो आजकल जो बात कर रहे हैं ना, फेडरल रेट्स की जो बात चल रही है, तो अभी ग्लोबली पीपल आर टॉकिंग कि जो फेडरल रेट्स हैं, रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट एंड ऑल दैट इज आल्सो बीइंग चेंज्ड फ्रीक्वेंटली। पहले तो इतना नहीं होता था, क्योंकि ये शायद इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल में था, और अभी तो बार बार चेंज हो रहे हैं वो। तो उस हालत में भी प्रॉब्ली पीपल आर लुकिंग के आफ्टर ऑल ये यूएस का जो इन्फ्लेशन है, ये उनके जो रिजर्व हैं या बॉन्ड के जो रिटर्न्स हैं, उनको कैसे इन्फ्लुएंस करेगा? डू यू थिंक पीपल आर रियली वरीड ऑन दैट अकाउंट?
Yes, it is really a problem for US as well as, and if the problem is for US, it is a problem for the world, because we are so interlinked with economics of the world's top 5-10 countries are so much interlinked. If there is a problem in one country, other countries also get impacted. If you remember in our one of the video where when we discuss about the failure of the US banks at that time, to Silicon Valley Bank and First Bank and other thing, the one of the reason was that these banks were not having any malpractices, but they kept the reserve in bonds, US bond. Now, what was happening till 22, because of COVID and prior to that, economy was in a bad shape. So they were quantum easing, QE they call it. So what was happening? They were putting a lot of money into the market at ease money, means it is almost at 0% of rate of interest. So US dollar or bonds were available at a very, very low rate and available. Now it has impacted when the amount, the liquidity is very high, it increases inflation, and which was further compounded by the war, China, Russia and Ukraine. So US was part indirectly because it is supporting Ukraine and NATO. So it was another reason for inflation. And what has happened? The energy prices has gone up because of the decision taken by the EU and US that not to use Russian energy for crude oil as well as gas. It was a very foolish decision because they had not made any alternate arrangement. They took a decision and then realized that it is hurting them more than Russia. But having said that, by the time it was too late for them to retreat it back, and all these countries now, which were normally not have seen inflation beyond 2 to 3%, they all are in double-digit inflation. Okay, so now which is another problem for common people. If inflation is very high, the net value or the net income, or you can say the of the individual's income is reduces because by that much percentage of the inflation. Now, the one of the worrisome part, as recently, like in India, we were having some Chinese app and other thing, instant app. You just download the app and then immediately you will be given loan of 20,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees, and people were taking as if they will not be giving it back. But they all these app operators are having a devious means, and they were forcing you to take out that money from by hook or by crook, not always by the legal means. The similar kind of apps and is instant money loan is now is very prevalent in US. You will be surprised. Instant loan public is using in US and 40% of that loan is being used for the grocery.
Okay.
I'm using the word grocery. It's not for electronics item or for car and other things for house. It is a very common thing to purchase a house on loan or take a car on loan. But grocery is 40% of the loan amount is being used by the US. Now, this loan or debt, which we call it of the private sector of the US, is almost double of what is the reserve size of India, which we having a forex. Means they are $966 billion is the debt of the individual. If we consider part of credit card and other thing, the amount is $1.3 trillion. Now,
Okay.
this is thing, say, let's say $1 trillion debt of an individual people, persons with
Okay.
a high rate of interest, it will be leading to another disaster. So it is another problem for us. If inflation they are not controlling, people are buying it on a loan, and if they are buying it on a loan, they have to pay a very high rate of interest. And
Oh.
in the last 1 year, let's say India, and if we compare between India and the US, rate of interest by the federal bank or by banks which they are hiring is almost nil. I will say 0.1% was the rate. And
Okay.
now US is having a 5.25% rate of interest, banking
Yeah.
rate of interest after this yesterday's increase of 25 basis point. Whereas India, which was having around 4% rate of interest during World War, the Russian war and other thing, and now after increasing and to control inflation thing, we had increased it by hardly 3%. So not even 6.5, 6.7% rate of interest. So India is in a different position vis-a-vis US and Euro. One of the major reason why we have not seen that a high inflation is because government of India kept energy prices fixed, means crude diesel prices and petrol price and then gas prices which were there were kept at a price which was more than 18-month old. So impact of war is not passed on to the public, which in turn control the inflation. But time uh, with war when it started in Russia and Ukraine in the last 1 year or February, if we call it, the inflation is mainly because of the energy, and that is the reason they are finding it very difficult because they could not, or as per their law, they have not keep energy prices fixed. It is driven by the market, and inflation is causing the biggest havoc in the countries, especially Germany, Italy, and in US. So it is a major reason. And now, hopefully, like what Indian Reserve Bank of India has done, they have paused the rate of entry higher. Similar kind of a thing probably will happen with the US. And once it happens, then it will stabilize further. And we may see kind of a stagnation, or economy will have impact, but major worry for them is that inflation as well as lowering the purchasing power of the public. So they have to control these two impact.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you,
so
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you. बैटल इज ऑन टू रिप्लेस द डॉलर, और ये रिलेटेड है एक्चुअली ग्लोबल ऑर्डर को स्टेटस को के लिए या फिर उसको चेंज करने के लिए। तो चाइना और रसिया दे आर मेकिंग एन एफर्ट, क्योंकि उनके पास और कोई चॉइस है नहीं, और शायद ये अपॉर्चुनिटी उनको मिल रही है। एंड दैट इज वेयर एक्चुअली इंडिया हैज टू प्ले अ रोल। ब्रिक्स में भी, क्वाड में भी, एंड ऑल दोज थिंग्स दे विल प्ले द रोल। मतलब ट्रस्ट ग्लोबली कौन अर्न करता है, ये एक इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट है। ऑफ कोर्स चाइना का तो आपको पता ही है, हर एक का ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट उसके साथ रहता ही है, और वो सबसे बड़ी रुकावट बनेगा डॉलर को रिप्लेस करने के लिए। अमेरिका हैज गॉट दैट एडवांटेज। बट साइमल्टेनियसली जब इंडिया एक्टिव होता है इस तरह के प्लेटफॉर्म पे जहां पे करेंसी को रिप्लेस करने की बात होती है, तो उस हालत में इंडिया को ये भी ध्यान रखना चाहिए कि यूएसए के साथ उसकी जो रिलेशनशिप है स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर की, वो इम्पैक्ट ना हो। थैंक यू सो मच। आई विल सी यू इन नेक्स्ट वीडियो। थैंक यू।